everyone. It's Nancy Addison with Organic Healthy Life, and I am just thrilled to have Wade Lightheart here with me today. And Wade is a three-time all-natural national bodybuilding champion. He's the advisor of the American Anti-Cancer Institute, director of education at BiOptimizers Nutrition, founder of the Prosperity and Health Alliance, and Ignatic, how do you pronounce that, Wade? Ignatic master trainer.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you got it.
And he's also majored in sports and science at the University of New Brunswick. And he is also the author of several books, including the best-selling books, Staying Alive in a Toxic World and The Healthy Backpacker, which I know all of us would love to be doing probably right now. And Wade travels the world to spread his life mission, helping others achieve a richer experience of life through daily practice of rituals that lead you to true health, real health, and peace of mind. And I'm really thrilled to have him today because he has figured out a lot about digestion and the gut, and he's going to share a lot of his valuable information with y'all today. And I'm appearing from the tropics because I'm in Texas right now where we're having an ice storm. And I'm just going to imagine I'm in the tropics backpacking with Wade. Welcome to the show, Wade.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. I'd love for you to share a little bit about your journey with our listeners so that they can understand what took you, number one, into bodybuilding, and then also, what transformed your life and moved you into working more on natural health.
Yeah, great questions. So it all kind of came together when I was 15, actually. A series of events happened in a very short period of time, like maybe inside of a month or so. And I lived in Canada. I grew up in a rural area, nothing unnormal, playing on your bikes and kids and ice hockey and all that sort of stuff. But when I was 15, my parents moved to an extremely rural place. They took a job as caretakers of a private resort, which was a beautiful place and wonderful, but something I did not want to be part of when I was 15. It was 5 miles up a dirt road to my nearest neighbor, 55 miles from a town, and the telephone poles ended at my door. So I had been taken away from kind of almost like kind of what people are experiencing COVID. We're separated from all the things that we have defined ourselves for, and at an early age that forced me to become very reflective and gave me a lot of time to think about things. And as much as I didn't like it then, I realized the advantages of that today. The second thing that transpired was my sister, who was 4 years my senior, was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease. And over the next 4 years, I watched her go through the medical model before she died at the early age of 22. And the impact of that was, as I knew that, oh, well, your health isn't a guarantee and your life isn't a guarantee. And when she was going through the treatment, I can remember we'd drive her home from that 55-mile trip and after a chemo treatment, and we'd have to stop maybe 5-6 times for her to get out and vomit. And I'm like, in my naive kind of teenage way, I'm like, shouldn't the treatment be making you healthier? Like, it just seems like it's worse. And so that was in my head. And then the third thing, when around the time she got diagnosed, she gave me a bodybuilding magazine that had Joy Zuclato on the cover. He won Mr. California at that point, and had two pretty girls on there in bikinis. I'm like, wow, I haven't seen like that. I didn't have those muscles, and I didn't ever see any of those girls. So I thought, driven mad with testosterone, I'd start lifting weights and working out. So I built a gym in my barn, kind of like, looked like Rocky Balboa when he fought Ivan Drago in Rocky IV or whatever, and sawhorses and pulleys, and had a little cement weight set. And I did all of those things that I built on my own. And long story short, 4 years later, I went to study exercise physiology at the University of New Brunswick. And then when I got out of school, I found that was a bunch of compartmentalized information that had no unifying theory. So I went on a quest to find people that were producing the results I wanted. And I remembered from a book that I had read during that journey from Arnold Schwarzenegger, who wrote Education of a Bodybuilder. And he suggested that you could achieve anything in life if you had hard work, self-discipline, and a positive attitude. Now, of course, at the time he was the most famous actor in Hollywood, the highest paid actor. He had won all these Mr. Universe and Mr. Olympia titles. He was a successful business magnate and kind of doing the groundwork to lay his career as a politician. Any one of those achievements are world class. And I grew up in an environment where everybody worked hard, but this self-discipline and positive attitude was a very interesting concept. And I embraced it wholeheartedly and went out into the world and started learning from people who were producing results I wanted, particularly in the health field. And that led me to working in the supplement industry. I ended up, ran a gym, became a personal trainer, coached thousands of people, ran my own nutrition store, developed products. And then in 2004, after I competed, I won my national championships in 2003, went to the world championships in Mumbai, India. And after that contest, I gained 42 pounds of fat and water in 11 weeks. So I went from Mr. Universe to Mr. Marshmallow. And along came my business partner at that time. He said, well, it's pretty amazing that you've won all these titles as a plant-based vegetarian guy. We could probably write a book. And I was very motivated to help people avoid the challenges that I made on a performance-based diet as opposed to a health-based diet. So I was in this middle ground where I achieved something that no one else had done, but there was also consequences to that as well that were unrealized. And I met a doctor by the name of Michael O'Brien, who was in his 70s. He was he was the picture of everything you would only hope and dream possible could be as a senior citizen. He was just radiant and vibrant, and he'd overcome cirrhosis of the liver and colon cancer. And he had helped Bernard Jensen, the kind of the father of, education, one of the big names in the nutrition industry, overcome cancer late in his life that he had gotten. And most people don't know about that. And it's written about in the book, Come Alive, one of his last books. And I said, I want to be like him. And he said something to me that changed my life. And maybe it'll be an invitation to your listeners. He said, Wade, you've learned to, I asked him, well, how did I screw this all up? Like I got the best coach. I've got the best training. I got Spartan discipline. I got a positive attitude. I'm willing to, I'm willing to do things, and have been recognized on a world scale from aesthetics. And he's like, you've learned to build the body from the outside in. I'm going to teach you how to build the body from the inside out. Long story short, I engaged in his whole program. I learned about the digestive system, and I have a background in exercise physiology and nutrition. They didn't teach these things. And I learned about enzymes and probiotics and mineralization. And I went on his very intense program. And in a few months, not only did I recapture my physique, but I had a new level of cognitive capacity, a new level of health and wellness. Matt, my business partner, did it. And then afterwards, we started a company educating athletes around the world. And then eventually that morphed into BiOptimizers as we developed a variety of solutions to what we develop biologically optimized health. In other words, we've moved so far away from the natural forms of living, and there's been many advantages of these technological innovations, but the consequences of them are now widespread as well. And so our goal is to marry the positive aspects of technological development to address the consequences of a technologically advanced world. And that's where biological optimization and BiOptimizers came in.
Okay. Wow, that's quite a journey you've had, and quite remarkable. And I know you call a lot of what you do biohacking, which is kind of what I would say, taking control of your own biology.
Yeah, and I would go one step further than biohacking. And so to me, when someone says biohacking, and Dave Asprey is kind of the father of that name, and I think it was a very catchy technological phrase to get people into the concept of, hey, how do I hack my system? But I always look at coming from a bodybuilding background where there's an incredible proliferation of hacks, which are I would say have very significant negative consequences to the overall health of the person. So to me, a hack is an artificially injecting something into the system, but may have consequences down the road, right? Like you could hack into the bank and take a bunch of money, but chances are the police are going to show up at some point and you're going to go to jail and lose your freedom. So you get all this money so you can have freedom units, but then you lose your freedom. So that's not really a good trade-off. With biological optimization, we're looking at optimizing the biological functions inside the body that have been compromised, oftentimes due to technological innovation deficiencies, nutritional deficiencies, kind of evolutionary lifestyle components that were not thought of, as well as making up for genetic variances and deviations that may have occurred in a person's life because of the consequences of everything that's happened in the last year. I mean, we've radically altered how humans live, work, how they eat. Virtually every aspect of the human organism has been altered with technology. And so there's no way out of it but using technology to bring us back and to get the best of both worlds.
That's a great explanation. And I agree with you. And I had my email hacked last week. So
Right. Yeah. Hack's not a good thing, right? My card gets hacked or my identity gets hacked or my computer, it's not good.
yeah. Oh, and by the way, y'all, I broke my arm. So that's what is on my hand.
Right.
But Wade, one of the things that, happened to you when you were in Mumbai, India, and you gained all that weight, what was the first most important thing that you did to address that?
Well, it's a great question. No one's actually asked that to me. And first, I had to come to the realization that there was something that I was doing wrong. Like there was something that I had made, and it's kind of unusual because here I was, a world-renowned personal trainer. I had the who's who, and suddenly I became a quote unquote a victim of my own success and the ignorance within that. So number one, I had to recognize that. Number two, I had to seek out someone who could find and solve that problem. And I got lucky. I found it relatively quickly. It's not always the case for a lot of people. And number three, I had to suspend many of the beliefs that had gotten me to the pinnacle of aesthetic excellence. I had to suspend some of those things and say, look, I need to submit myself to another program, even though it contradicts some of the things that I've believed for so long, because I didn't see the consequences of what my goal towards performance was. And so there is a certain level of humility that requires, and a certain level of I would say it's kind of like a beginner's mind in Zen philosophy. So one of the keys is can you approach life with a beginner's mind? And I had to let go of my credentials. I had to let go of my success. I had to let go of being an authority. I had to let go with sort of tribalistic thinking, which was associated with that world, and engage and embrace. And had Dr. O'Brien had been not such a picture of health, he was one of the most healthy, vibrant beings I've ever met to this day, I don't know if I could have done it. But it was again, almost like when I saw that first muscle picture of Troy Zuclato, it was so shocking to my mind. I was very clear that I wasn't that. And when I met Dr. O'Brien, it was the same thing. I was clear that I wasn't that, and I wanted that. And so I think there needs to be enough of a gap between your mentor and where you are that you're willing to let go of the belief systems that got you into this situation you are. And if that person isn't inspirational enough for you, you need to find someone at a level that is, and because otherwise I think we'll just default and rationalize why that person's program wouldn't work, even if it does. And then we often don't follow it.
Well, that was a really great rendition of how you went through that change. And I think that is one of the hardest things for people to do, is address the fact that they have to do something new and different. And so frequently people are telling me, I can't do that. I mean, I've had people with stage 4 cancer or blood disease sit in front of me with, they just got given 2 months to live, and they'll say, well, I am not going to be a vegetarian, and I'm not going to give up my wine, and I'm not going to da, 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 da. And, you know, and you just, that's impressive that you took that. And I think your recommendation to find someone that you can relate to is so vitally important. And the gut, as far as my research has shown, all me 35 years, is one of the biggest challenges people have. And it's also where most of the immune system lies, and your overall health truly reflects the health of your intestinal tract. And if that isn't healthy, then you cannot possibly be healthy. And people like Elvis or John Wayne, I mean, they both died with like over 40 pounds of waste in their intestinal tract that was just undigested waste. And so I think it's wonderful that you're here to share some of your insight on that with us, because that's one of the main questions I get when I have my radio show or when I'm counseling people, and they all seem to have constipation or some kind of irregularity. And then I'll tell them what to do, and they'll be like, well, am I going to have to go to the bathroom? And I'm like, yes, because if you don't, it's not getting out of your body. So, can you share a little bit of your insight with your philosophy on the digestive system and having a healthy gut?
Sure. To your point, 12% of the emergency hospital visits today are related to gastrointestinal diseases in the United States. That's going to an emergency situation. 100 million people today are suffering from digestive conditions. 25% of those are on permanent prescription medication, which treat the symptoms but not the cause. And to understand the cause, one has to understand that 80 years ago, the United States dropped a nuclear bomb on Japan and ushered in the atomic age. And people then, technology integrations through distribution channels, information channels, advertising, marketing, shipping, all changed after the war. And the United States became the manufacturing center of the entire world. And so people moved into cities to take manufacturing jobs. At the turn of the century, there was 98% of the people were living on a farm. And today it's less than two-thirds. It's completely inverted just 100 years later. And so the governments of the world had to recognize, well, geez, how are we going to feed all these people? The baby boom happened. There was an explosion in the population after that. And what they come up with is large monoculture farming practices in order to meet the staples and demands. And we moved away from crop rotation, where you'd grow one crop this year and one crop next year, and you move it around, and you have a year where you grew hemp and you'd grind that back into the soil, and you'd have a year where it was left fallow, which the microbes would then work on the food to create the nutrients for the food. And that was abandoned. And what happened is then we had to accelerate the growth rates. So they used leftover nitrogen from the bombs of World War II and infused the soil with that to create an increased yield. But the problem with that is that the plants had to give up essential proteins to convert to enzymes to try and extract vitamins and minerals, which weren't present in the soil. And so what you had is bigger growth and less nutrients. So people then began overeating because they're not getting the phytonutrients. Our definitions of food was incorrect because it was only based on macros. And then as the plants got weaker, they started to be subject to disease and pesticides and blight. So then they came up with a vast array of chemicals, herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, and put that on the plants. Then the plants didn't taste right. So then guess what? They had to add dyes and preservatives. Shipping went into large, corporate entities, which would ship products around the world. So when your bananas come, you didn't get ripe bananas. You got bananas that were green, that didn't have any nutrients, didn't have the enzymes naturally, didn't have the probiotics. They bring it into the US, they get it to the store, they gas it on a truck, and they give it to you. And so once you understand that this has been, slowly going over 80 years, then people can say, okay, the reason people are having digestive issues is because we do not have the naturally occurring enzymes, bacteria, minerals, vitamins, and essential elements that are also concordant with healthy food. And instead, we've replaced it with boxed, processed, cooked, dyed, preserved things that stimulate the nervous system or chemicals that mimic vitamins and minerals, making us more addicted to them, and running blood sugar cycles that we get these highs and these lows, as well as a bunch of, you know, denatured proteins, denatured fats, and simple refined carbohydrates, which our systems weren't designed to manage. And all of this, and then on top of that, we overprescribed antibiotics. Antibiotics save millions of people, but they wipe out the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in your bacteria. And we live in a symbiotic relationship in our intestinal tract with bacteria, who are the final process of a 5-stage digestive process, where they bring the nutrients that have been, you know, first you chew your food, and then the food goes in the upper intestinal tract. There's 30 to 60 minutes where the enzymes present are supposed to break it down, but we cook our food, so we don't have any enzymes. And then the hydrochloric acid comes in, which disinfects from the bugs, right? And then it goes into the intestinal tract. We put some buffers, the bacteria works on it, and then we eliminate it in the final stage of digestion. Plus, on top of that, we add sedentary lifestyles. We stare into blue light computers all the time. So we disrupt our circadian rhythm. We eat in front of the televisions. We don't have rest and digest. We're in, you know, sympathetic nervous system too much. And so all of these things have led to an accelerated dis-ease population who are relying on medications to treat the symptoms of this, as opposed to altering their lifestyle, going backwards, starting at the beginning. And for most people, they need to clean themselves out first, as you were talking about. And so to reverse the trend of, you know, cities and technological innovation and chemicals, we got to start at the beginning. As the Buddha said, when you are lost, you start at the beginning. And the beginning is you shut the TVs off, you eat real food. I'm dietary agnostic. Follow the diet that's right for you. We're like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't need to get into diet tribalism, but we can find some common elements. And the common elements are, you want natural whole food. You want to eat less, not more. You want to make sure that you have clean hydration and that you practice some sort of deep breathing that gets your nervous system out of, you know, fight or flight and into rest and relax. And then you want to add the elements that you're missing through educated testing, because no diet is perfect. Every diet has advantages and disadvantages. So you can now get access to testing, which can determine what nutrients you're missing, what bacteria you're missing in your gut. You know, do you have enough hydrochloric acid? Can you add some enzymes into your food so that you pre-digest it because you don't have it present? And if you do these things, it's remarkable that the body's millions of years of evolution will now be reactivated in the way that it's supposed to work. And all of these processes just start to correct and come into balance again. And then people go, well, I've never felt better. And that's exactly what I went through. I did that exact process. So I'm not talking about something that I didn't do or didn't experience. It's something I had to go through myself as an advocate for health. And so we talk about the 3 triangles: aesthetics, performance, and health. And those are what people are generally looking for in their health life. But at the end of the day, the bottom of that pyramid is health. And there's no way around it. There's no shortcuts. There's no hacks. It takes lifestyle intervention and eventually optimization.
Yeah. That was very eloquently said. I really love that. And I did that 35 years ago, and now I'm 66. And yeah, I just, I feel like I feel better this last 35 years than I did the first half of my life. And I think all of those points that you made are so good. You know, people are not getting enough exercise. They aren't breathing deeply. And especially in this last year where they're being fear-mongered by everything on the news, and you're, you know, breathing, you know, up in your lungs and not breathing really deep down into the diaphragm. And, and I think, and people don't chew their food either. I think, you know, that's something I work with people all the time on. And then they're afraid. They're like, oh, but, you know, I don't like the taste of that. And it's because they've been eating processed, you know, microwaved food that, you know, has all these unnatural flavors in it. And it's their taste buds have gotten adjusted to that. And I always am like, your taste buds will adjust. Give it 2 weeks, you know, stick with this for 2 weeks. But you are absolutely right. You've got to give the body the nutrition it needs, or it can't do anything. And I really believe that's the tools. And when people are struggling with ill health, I've always just been amazed that they don't go to the reason why and deal with that, which is usually what you're putting in your body becomes your cells, your tissue, and your blood. So that would be it. And I love that that is what you've been working on, and that you've created certain products that really address this. I've looked at all of these obese people, and I've looked at them, and I see that they're literally starving to death. Mm-hmm. And I think that is truly the key. And you talked about the enzymes, and people chewing gum. Every time they chew gum, they're using up their precious limited store of enzymes. And so most people I know who've been struggling with cancer are like gum chewers. And you're telling your body you're going to digest food, but you're not. So you're wasting them. And those are so precious, because when they're gone, you die. Right. So can you share with everybody what you've developed and something about that?
Well, one of the things when I started to rebuild myself is I had to recognize that we had created some really, really big challenges in my digestion. I had a high protein content that was helpful for me achieving my aesthetics ideal, but it was putting incredible levels of pressure on my digestive system. And so we went out and got a little background noise there. I'm sure what that is. But anyways, we went out and started digesting a full range proteolytic enzyme. And that proteolytic enzyme started breaking down the undigested proteins that had caused the intestinal distress inside my body. We also developed a patented probiotic that also breaks down undigested protein. Undigested protein, by the way, is the most inflammatory agent that gets into the blood. You need to leak it into our systems through what they call a leaky gut. And then beyond that, we developed hydrochloric acid, enzymes that break down gluten, because you can get such easy, even if you're very diligent, you can get cross-contamination from it. You go to a restaurant, you go to different things, there's a lot of unadvertised gluten, so many people can't break that down. And then intestinal cleansers, parasite eliminators, all these sort of things that build up in our intestinal tract. And so that's where the foundation of the company is. We went into the nervous system, and now we're working on the brain. And it's been a real journey and a fun vision.
Well, growing up in this, last 66 years that I did, we've all been bombarded with the fact, or the idea that we all need all this protein. And, it's all advertising by the meat and dairy and chicken industry. But really what my research has shown me, and some of this is from a study done by the University of Southern California that found that people that had a high creature intake in their diet, and I'm assuming that a lot of these people don't chew their food very well either, but if they're eating a whole lot of animal products all the time, they were found to be 75% more likely to get diseased or die. And if they were eating a high protein intake diet that was plant-based, it was just the opposite. And what some of the doctors that I took plant-based nutrition from, like Dr. Esselstyn at the Cleveland Heart Clinic, he was saying that what we really need, it's not the proteins we need, it's the complex amino acids, which are prevalent in plant-based foods. But you were also talking about, these new farming methods, and, like the herbicide that they put on so many of these plants, the glyphosate, that it was originally patented as an antibiotic, so it kills all life. It's also a mineral chelator, so there's no minerals. Once they put that down, it's also high estrogen, so it throws off all your hormones. And it's been found to cause leaky gut and block the shigmate pathway, which are complex amino acids that reduce anxiety and help you sleep. And then it helps escort all these toxins through the blood-brain barrier into your brain. So, high amounts of autism and also Alzheimer's. And so it's escorting a lot of these toxins, like the mercury that's in the air from all these forest fires, and the lead that this glyphosate is stripping from, because they're using them in industrial chimneys to, strip out the minerals. People don't realize that if they're not eating high quality food, these foods that are grown conventionally and are frequently genetically modified with all kinds of toxic poisons, they're not getting nutrition, and their body really needs to detoxify from these. And what I found is eating whole real food that's high in antioxidants, it's vine ripened or tree ripened, it will flush out these toxins. Exercise, sweating helps flush out these toxins. And then eating a healthy diet, like you were talking about. Because if this food is grown that way, it's got 40 to 80% less nutrients in it than it did 100 years ago. And then the gluten is, they've developed these grains to have 80% more gluten in it than they did 100 years ago, or in different parts in the world where they don't do this. And gluten is quite literally like glue, and your body cannot process that. So, I love the fact that you have really addressed those things and have taken it a step further, and even been working to help people with some things that they can add to their system, to their body, to help deal with that. And I do believe the body's amazing, and when we do give it the right tools, it can do miraculous things. And I've just seen people's health totally transform, literally sometimes within a week, if they start eating the right things. And I'm bet you have seen that too. And so, the parasites and things, people don't realize that they get parasites, and they build up in our gut. And so do you have like a big moment where you just, really were just like, what was your biggest challenge with this? And how'd you overcome that?
Well, I think the competing information was maybe perhaps the biggest issue to deal with. In other words, we had to find a way that allowed us to unify what seemed to be the competing theories of nutrition. And so what I looked at was, okay, well, what is the single unit of health that a person might have? And that's the cell. So if we look at the cell, that's every part of your body is made up of cells, right? And so I said, if we could figure out how to optimize the health of a cell, then we could probably positively affect every aspect of the body. And so I just went back to first principles. I had an aptitude for physics. And so I decided to let go of all the chemical idea, the whole aspects of chemistry to start with, and say, okay, well, we know that the energy unit inside a cell is the mitochondria, and how it produces energy is a process called electron covalent transfer. It's actually an electrical transmission. Okay. And that is a part of cellular respiration and energy metabolism. So when I went, wait a second, well, then is diet the most important thing? Well, I can go a couple months without eating. It's unpleasant, but I could survive. How long could I go without water? Well, maybe a week or two. Not very long. So on the order of magnitude, which is more important, lots of water or the food I eat? No, water's superior. Okay, and then what kind of water? And we can get into that. But then I was like, well, wait a second. Is there anything else that's more superior to that for energy production? I was like, oh, well, breathing. Can't go more than a few minutes without breathing. It's very uncomfortable. So I went, okay, so air, water are the two primary things. Now, wait a second. If I take a person and put them in a bed, lock them down and they don't move, we know that every single physical parameter of health starts to deteriorate. And I was like, okay, so exercise is actually more important than diet. And so I was like, okay, so the three things that are non-negotiable is a deep breathing practice. And in the East, they look at the exhale as the first part of the breath, because that is the removal of toxic waste from the cells. The second piece is making sure that I'm fully hydrated, since we're mostly bags of water, without chlorine and fluoride and recycled medical drugs and all that sort of stuff that's found in tap water. And so if you're going to drink tap water, you need to have a very sophisticated filtration system in order for you actually, it's fit to consume. And then you need to incorporate a lifestyle that includes, activity every day. And then I looked at diet from a position of light. So we live in a solar system, and everything is on this planet is pretty much dependent on the sun, and it's emergent. We were all once stars and everything that you see here. And so the conversion of whatever you're consuming into the building blocks in the and the energy electrons that power up the system, can have a significant variance in how efficient that process is. I'll give you an example. You could burn lots of different types of fuel in your car with different parts, and it'll have a whole different on exhaust waste. Okay, so you can burn alcohol, you can burn kerosene, you can burn gasoline, you can burn diesel, you can burn all kinds of plant alcohols or something. But each one of those is going to have an effect on the engine and an effect on the exhaust, how much exhaust you're going to make. Our cells are like that too. The dirtier the energy, the more toxic waste you're going to produce. And so we needed to find a way to, number one, improve the density and efficiency of mitochondria. And we needed to improve the flow of the food that we were eating, regardless of the dietary practice. So that chemical reaction was much smoother. So I put sunlight, and then we went into optimizers, the things that optimize cellular function. We know that enzymes and probiotics are the only thing that do any work in the body. You need enzymes are involved in everything from thinking to blinking. They're your metabolic bank account. We used to get them from live foods. Very few people eat live foods, and most of the live food we eat doesn't have enzymes in it because it's been irradiated or pasteurized because of the food production. And so we need to input those into the system. We need to input bacteria, good bacteria, because we got this story that all bacteria is bad, and there's 10% good, 10% bad, 80% opportunist. We need to make sure that we have the essential amino acids, which you refer to, the essential fatty acids, which make all the function of our cells and our tissues work better, the essential minerals, and I would say and all minerals are essential, even the trace minerals. And a lot of people don't understand that there's a reason your body has these things in there, right? As well as all of the essential vitamins for your function. And then you could go to herbs. Herbs are a way of using specific herbs to either wipe out parasites or to take out foreign invaders or to move energy from the different meridians in the body. And then finally, you get to mental beliefs and attitude, and then you get to education, testing, and coaching, because education, the root word is educe, to learn from within, and you learn from within by running tests, whether that's a biochemical test with your naturopathic doctor, or it's a test I could walk up the stairs today, and I want to walk up 2 flights tomorrow and 3 flights. It can be as simple as that or as complex as you want to get. And the quickest, fastest, easiest way to run the right tests for yourself on all of those parameters is to get yourself a coach who's been there, done that, and has followed that system and has run thousands of tests and can cut the learning curve for you, the listener, to go through that process. I call the whole system the Awesome Health Formula. That's the acronym I use: air, water, exercise, sunlight, optimizers, mental beliefs, and attitude, and education, testing, and coaching. And I use my company, BiOptimizers, as a platform to get the course out. I give the course away. It's 12 weeks, 84 videos, 5 to 15 minutes. I show the sources, the people I got the information to, and I put it into this grand universal system of application so that people, whatever their age, their goals, their lifestyle, their dietary practices, their religious beliefs, their outlook, could take this system and plug it into their life, and they know where to put their time, effort, and energy relative to what they have available in this moment, and continue to scale up. Because there's a certain part, and you're a testimony to this, it's obvious, that there's a certain part where you move out of the sickness and dis-ease kind of world and you get to normal, but then there's this other part where you start to feel great. And then you feel the energy start to course through your veins, and the age, your time starts to go backwards. And then you start to get all these feedback things, and your brain works better, and your relationships work better, and your life works better, and you have the energy to do the things you want to do and connect with people in a way that you want to connect with. And then you become an addict to a healthy lifestyle. And then there's this super level of health that people can experience. And I'm encouraging people to follow that journey, take my word for it, and discover the miracle within themselves. And it's an awesome journey, and it's endless, and I'm still on it.
I love that. I love everything you just said. And I second that. And I love that you mentioned sunlight, because I think the sun is one of the most healing things available to us, and fresh air. And everything over this last year that they've told people to do, I feel goes totally against everything I know to be healthy. And also, I've learned over the last 15, 20 years that sunscreens are incredibly harmful to our health, and they prevent us from making the vitamin D from the sunlight. And I've had Dr. Elizabeth Florida on my show quite a few times, and she's researched this extensively and believes they actually cause skin cancer. And her research backs that up. And so Dr. Stephanie Senna, her research shows that too. So, you know, I so second what you're suggesting people do. Get out in the sunlight, get out, exercise, breathe, laugh, focus on good things, and do eat real food. And I'm going to add one more thing to your radiation and pasteurizing, but microwaving destroys the content of the food. And I just am horrified that people use those. And I've been known to duct tape people's microwave shut.
Exactly.
Because it destroys the integrity of the food. It destroys the molecular structure of the water. And a lot of the food we eat is water. And we are 66 to 72% water or more. And like you were talking about with the hydration, and that's absolutely critical. And people really, I think sometimes they just get out of practice, or maybe they just grew up on fast food and they don't really know how to switch to whole real food. And I've even known that some people don't even know how to use, you know, a knife and cut a piece of fruit up, or a blender. But you know, does your course help people with even the basics?
Yeah, I walk people through every single component, where I learned it, how I got it, so they can get the deep references. So it comes in they get an email, they can go through the course and burn through it. I had one lady, she's a Miss Olympia competitor. She went through the whole course in a weekend. She's pretty aggressive. Some people will take them several months, or they'll just pick, you know, things that they're interested in. And if you go through that, you'll go through a journey where you will walk away and be able to evaluate any health system, any education, any course. And I think that's the biggest thing, is you want to be able to arm people with the capacity to discern where they put whatever resources they have, and time, energy, and money, and get the biggest leverage on each one of those movements, because it'll take you to the next step and the next step. So we cover everything right down to the absolute ridiculousness of it, because I don't take any assumptions. I mean, I was fortunate. I grew up in the woods, and my mom grew an organic garden. So when I went off to university and started eating, you know, chemical laden food that wouldn't come from the farm, well, I instantly felt a difference, and I didn't know why. And that was my first aha. Now, it took me 20 more years to figure that all out. And, you know, and then another 20 to keep blabbing about it. So, you know, it's like, so there's no end to it. And I'm sure I'm going to discover more things, but it's about, can you apply a philosophy on health that's going to lead you to it? Or are you just trying to counteract poor lifestyle choices? And I think it's a big difference in the two.
You know, I think in today's day and time, this is one of the most important things for people to focus on. And I know so many people really have, you know, been at home, not exercising. They've been eating that comfort food that may be processed, or foods that are filled with chemicals like MSG, that is actually highly addictive, and a chemical that causes brain damage. And, you know, eating these fresh, whole, real foods and getting these enzymes, you know, that raises your pH. It flushes out the toxins and the acids in your cells. It cleans out your body. And then, like you were talking about with the bacteria, that is absolutely critical. And I believe so many people have had so many of these antibiotics, the antibiotic soap they're telling people to use, or these hand sanitizers that just make my hair stand on end, because they cause liver damage, most of them, and it goes straight to your bloodstream. It is just like taking an antibiotic every single time you do that. So it's wiping out your entire immune system every time you do that. And it's the good bacteria, that the probiotics is what your immune system is. And so, you know, I think your program just looks fantastic in it. And of course, you are the walking example of how great it can be, and how you can be healthy and feel great. And I have to admit, when I am somewhere and I eat something that isn't my normal quality food, that's organic and freshly grown and things like that, it literally makes my tongue burn, and I can feel it. And it I don't want to feel that way anymore. I love feeling vivacious and waking up happy with lots of energy and not needing that cup of coffee, and wanting to go out in the sunshine and dance. I used to be a dancer. I was in a dance company in London in college, and so I love exercise, and I'm also a horseback rider, so I
awesome.
love the fresh air. But I think you have such great examples, and so I'd love for you to share with everyone about your
BiOptimizers. Yep.
optimizers.
Yep.
And he is offering all of y'all a 10% off for if you use this link, and I'll put all the links below. And
yeah, so people can reach out to us at bioptimizers.com/healthy lifestyle. And they've put healthy lifestyle 10, they'll get 10% discount. And here's one of the things that we do. If you go there, just get the course first. You don't have to worry about the supplements and stuff. The next thing is, if you want to select or try some of our products, we make it really easy. If people try our products and they're not absolutely blown away by their raw results, they just call us up, email us, send a carrier pigeon, and we give people their money back. We are very confident in what we do can solve most people's challenges. We have a very well-educated staff that answers all your questions. Any question that they can't answer, because I've trained them all personally, goes directly to me. We have a repository of over 8,000 questions that have been asked. So we've gone very, very deep in that. And again, if something that we can't provide can't solve a problem for someone, it's great that you don't have any risk. But more importantly, you can't supplement your way out of a bad lifestyle. So the goal is, hey, let's get this information out in a way that works better. So we have an Awesome Health podcast, Facebook, Instagram, all that sort of stuff. My staff takes out and puts these information out, where I interview world-class performers in all these different areas and find out what they had. And it's amazing the common elements between almost everybody who's healthy and what they embrace and what they teach.
This is all such great information. And as we kind of come to the end of our show, I would love to ask you, what is your number 3 top tips that someone could implement right now that would really help them feel better?
Number 1, take up a deep breathing practice. You can get a Tai Chi or Qigong or yoga practitioner or a respiratory therapist if you're on the science side, and learn the process of how you switch yourself out of fight or flight into parasympathetic rest and relax. That's probably the number 1 thing you can do to reverse the cascade of negative effects inside your body. The second thing, drink between 3 and 6 liters of the best possible water you can. I happen to use a very sophisticated filtration system with an ionizer on top of it to get all these antioxidants. That's what I do because I understand the investment, and that's probably giving me more health than anything else. The third thing is to do daily exercise every day. And you go, well, I don't have time, or I'm in a cold climate, or I'm too old, or I'm too young, or I'm too fat, or I'm too whatever. Go out and get yourself a little mini trampoline. I use David Hall's Cellar Sizer. It's super durable. It's great. You can bounce up and down. It will train every single cell in your body in 10 or 15 minutes a day. And you can literally do that whole thing. You can do the deep breathing, drink a liter of water before you jump on it, jump on that thing for 10 minutes. And when you get off, make yourself a nice, plant-based, essential fatty acid, vitamin and mineral loaded smoothie afterwards. Eat a salad in the afternoon and have whatever it is that you like for dinner. You just do those simple principles every day for a month. Your life will be completely transformed, and you'll start to realize why we're so big on advocating these things.
I love that. And I love everything you just suggested, and I second that. And, as you jump on that little trampoline thing, it also gets your lymphatic system moving. And when you're not moving, your lymphatic system can't move. And that is what carries waste out of your body.
Correct.
So that is going to help you detox as well. And if you can't do that, then just start. If you're chair bound or something, start with your arms. See if you can get better. And if you start improving your diet, you may soon be able to stand up and, do what you can. And, I'd even say if you can only do it 3 minutes a day, start with 3 minutes and do it for 19 days and then maybe you do 5 minutes, but build up to it. And before you know it, you might look like Wade, like Lightheart. And be feeling is great too. Oh, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show today. And do you have a favorite quote or a passing thought or a favorite something that you'd like to share with our listeners that would that they can carry away with it?
Yeah, sure. I think, the Buddha said it best: when you are lost, start at the beginning. So if you're out there struggling with your health, or you've gotten off the path, it happens in life and to people. Start at the beginning. Start back and don't be a prisoner of your past. Forget it. It has no bearing on your future. But if you start at the beginning today and take that next step on your journey to health, the future is certain to improve.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us today with your
Thank you.
Beautiful pearls of wisdom. And for all of my listeners out there, I'm Nancy Addison, your host. We're just honored to have Wade Lightheart here today with us. And I'm going to put all his links below, and it's BiOptimizers.com. And you can also go to his website, WadeLightheart.com, and find him that way. And thank you everyone for joining us. And we just want you all to know that we love you and we appreciate you sharing your valuable time with us. And I always say, how we do anything is how we do everything.
Yes.
So as you go through your life and you connect with everyone around you, just remember to add that main ingredient. And that main ingredient is always love.